Hey everyone, I just told you I was going to go spend time with my family on vacation, but when Trita Parsi says he's available, well, I got to bring him in. Trita Parsi, for those who don't know, is an expert on U.S. Middle East relations, specifically on Iran. He is at the Quincy Institute. Had a great conversation with him a couple of days ago. Please subscribe to his Substack. You will be seeing his face, unfortunately, a lot. Not because it is a beautiful face, but it's because the United States has officially joined Israel in its reckless war with Iran. Since I only have him for 15 minutes, Trita, your thoughts. I give it to you.
First thing I would say is that I think Trump has all but guaranteed that Iran will be a nuclear weapon state in 5 to 10 years from now.
Hmm.
Nothing really skyrockets a country's desire and sense of need for a nuclear deterrence than being attacked in this manner by two nuclear powers, none of them having been attacked by Iran. The United States did not get attacked by Iran. Israel did not get attacked by Iran. Yet they launched these unprovoked attacks. And not only that, this is going to skyrocket the demand for nuclear weapons in other countries in the region. If I was sitting in Ankara or in Riyadh right now, I would be looking at nuclear options because you're going to be very concerned. You're going to be extremely concerned about your vulnerability. This is breaking so many norms. This is breaking so many laws of international law that you're going to feel like the only thing that actually can protect you from this is by having a nuclear deterrence. And I would say particularly if this regime falls, I think you are going to see the next regime being much more determined towards getting a nuclear weapon than this one has been, which actually has been very ambivalent about it. And the next regime, I fear, is not going to be a bunch of really nice, peaceful NGOs taking over the country. It's going to be harsher elements from within this existing regime that will take over. And they will do so with a promise, a platform of getting nuclear deterrence.
And Trita, because I'm old enough, I recall that when the United States last time promised strength and security in its war, in its unilateral strike against Iraq, with lies that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, and its a promise of regime change in Afghanistan, there was 2 decades of death and destruction. It birthed ISIS, and Taliban has returned back to power in Afghanistan, and soldiers were killed, hundreds of thousands of innocent lives killed, generations traumatized. So there are people cheerleading this right now. There are liberals cheerleading this right now. They're like, oh, this is a good thing. I don't want to give Trump credit, but this is good. He finally had the guts to do this. What's the blowback of this strike? And literally, U.S. joining Israel, because I think, and please disagree with me, I think this is a declaration of war. If I'm Iran, U.S. has
Sure.
officially joined Israel in declaring war against
Yeah.
Iran. What's going to be the blowback?
So let me first say something about the blowback, but also something about the larger picture. Um, the US side had apparently informed the Iranians through various channels that this would be an attack. It would be a one-off. It was not going to be a regime change attack. It was just going to be against these facilities. Now, it's not entirely clear what the Iranians will do in return, but there's a likelihood that they will strike some US bases that also have been emptied, such as the Fordo plant was emptied. And perhaps both sides will be able to walk away from that moment. However, that does not mean that the Iranian nuclear program was destroyed, right? It means that nevertheless, particularly since they have taken the enriched uranium out of Fordo, apparently, it means that they still have the crown jewel of the program left, which is the stockpile. And that can then be transformed into weapons grade uranium. And you will start hearing the Israelis making this point because they will say, hold on, we're not done yet. We got a bomb here, we got a bomb there. And it's going to be this endless kind of constant warfare and bombing. I find that a more likely scenario than the scenario that, both sides will just walk away, meet at the negotiating table, and strike a beautiful deal. In 1981, the Israelis struck the Iraqi reactor named Osirak. They
Yep.
actually did so with the help of the Iranians. The Iranians had struck it several times in the Iraq-Iran war, but had failed. But they had given their intelligence to the Israelis, who then struck it successfully. For some time, it was deemed a real success. Later on, we found out that that Saddam Hussein actually quadrupled his nuclear budget after that strike. And had he not invaded Kuwait in 1991, had he just waited another 6 months, he would likely have had a nuclear weapon. It would have gone undetected because the IAEA did not have the additional protocol at the time. And as a result, it was unknown to the world how fast and how far he had gone. But I raise that as a point to point out that this is going to be the exact argument the Israelis soon will be making as a justification for further strikes, further warfare, because they started something they knew would not finish it, but would get the United States into an endless war.
And I like to keep receipts here on the left hook. I'm old enough to remember that the United States helped engineer a coup against the democratically elected president of Iran, Mossadegh, because Mossadegh had the audacity to try to nationalize Iranian oil. And then the U.S. helped the Shah of Iran. The Shah of Iran was a brutal dictator who unleashed his own secret police, Savak. That is what caused anger and rage towards the West and America, led to the Iranian Revolution. And now you're going to see Iranians say, oh my God, we're at war with these two imperial forces, US and Israel, that you said are nuclear powered. We all know Israel has a nuclear program, has nuclear weapons. And there's going to be a spillover, right? And so I'm also worried about the asymmetrical warfare because to me, and I posted this and I want your thoughts on this, the winner of this ultimately, to me, is Benjamin Netanyahu, violent extremists, and the military industrial complex. Who else wins, Trida?
Certainly not the Iranian people, certainly not the American people. If I was now in the MAGA camp, and I talk to a lot of people there, I know there's a lot of ambivalent feelings. Some of them are very upset. A person who tends to email me every time I write an article criticizing Trump just emailed me minutes before I got on the show here with you saying that he's devastated and that he feels completely betrayed because a lot of these people genuinely did not want to see more wars. They genuinely believe that this was a candidate that would deliver that to them. And they generally are against these wars because they have paid a higher price for America's war than most liberal leaning congressional districts in the United States have because they send more soldiers to the front lines than blue states tend to do. So I think this could also create significant rifts within the MAGA movement. I think in the beginning, you're going to have some of them trying to get close to the president. They don't want to be out against him, particularly if they think this is a successful strike. But over time, if this turns out to be the beginning of a messy thing, I think you're going to see some significant splits.
Yeah, I predict that as well. And you've already seen it with Candace Owens tweeting today, mocking Donald Trump. You saw Dave Smith publicly break from Donald Trump. You and I think we talked about Ted Cruz being humiliated by Tucker Carlson because a majority of Americans, if you look at the poll folks that came out, a majority of Americans have the memory of the failed war on terror. They do not want America to join Israel's war. Most
Yeah.
people now have a negative view of Israel. And speaking about Israel, I don't know if you saw the speech. I'm sure you saw Donald Trump's speech. I thought that could have been written by Benjamin Netanyahu, Trina. Like that could have been literally written by Netanyahu and delivered by Netanyahu. Your talks on the speech and the talking points and the justification for this unilateral strike.
He could not have wished for a better speech, Netanyahu. This was the best speech that he possibly could have wished for. And I think what it tried to do there is to give the sense that they were constantly from the day one on the same page, and they were not. I think
Yeah.
the evidence is very clear that this has been a very messy process. It could have gone in different direction, but the Israelis won out, and they managed to convince Trump to go in this direction. If this was all set up from the beginning, you would not have a situation in which Trump scrambled in the last 48 hours to move all of that material, all of those military assets to the region. Um, so I think this is something in which the Israelis just kept on. I've been talking to people inside the USG, saying that the Israelis were just absolutely relentless. They also realized that having started the war, they would be in a very bad situation if they didn't manage to get the US into the war. So it was
Mhm.
critical for them to get the US in. So they put in everything they had. But here's where I think there's going to be a real challenge for Trump. His speech may very well end up looking very similar to George W. Bush's mission accomplished moment.
Oh yeah.
Because what is tactically successful militarily in the beginning does not necessarily translate into a strategic win in the long run. In the beginning, the Iraq war looked like a great success. The Iraqi military fell within 3 weeks. Baghdad Bob kept on saying all of these things about how they're winning, and they clearly were not. But it took only about 2 or 3 years later that everyone realized, oh my God, we have inherited a hell of a mess. that we do not know how to get out of, we do not know how to handle. And as you pointed out earlier on, it gave birth to all kinds of instability and extremist organizations, including, of course, ISIS. So, what looks like a tactical success that may cause some people, including Democrats, to come out there and support it, can backfire very fast. That's at least the experience of the last 2, 3 decades.
Easy to start wars in the Middle East, hard to finish them. And I don't know, it's been a failure. So maybe try again. If you keep trying the same thing again and again that has failed, maybe that's a definition of insanity. But Donald Trump now has his war. The America First president who promised peace. Now, this is his war, folks. He wore the MAGA hat. They just released photos from that Security Council. And Tulsi Gabbard, shockingly, was not invited. I wonder why, because Tulsi Gabbard 90 days ago, folks, said that Iran is not close to having nuclear weapons, and he threw Tulsi under the bus and said, I don't trust her intelligence, which then makes me ask the question, Prita, whose intelligence do you trust? And again, it goes back to Netanyahu. So Netanyahu, pardon my language, who's had a war boner for 3 decades. You and I remember his video when he came in and tried to give that testimony right after the war on terror, trying to convince America to do a regime change in Iran. He might get his wish because he has this gullible fool in the form of Donald Trump. But the blowback will be severe. The world has become less safe tonight, and I have to connect the dots and stay fair. Let's go back to Gaza if we can.
Can I
And
just
Joe
pause
Biden.
you on 1 second and say one thing here? Keep in mind that there is this recording of the president of APAC bragging about how close they are to a gentleman by the name of Radcliffe that currently just became, just months
Oh,
ago,
so that's legit?
the
I didn't know if that was a legit recording.
Oh yeah,
I've heard.
that's legit.
Okay.
That's legit. And that's the head of the CIA. And he has been making the case for Netanyahu inside government. And according to other officials in the Trump administration, he was not presenting American intelligence. He was presenting the Israeli intelligence. That is not the same as the American intelligence.
No, thank you for that. That's very important. And again, folks, Donald Trump literally said he does not believe his own director of national intelligence. He threw under the bus 2 times. So it begs the question, if you're not trusting U.S. intelligence, whose intelligence are you trusting? And the answer to me goes Netanyahu, who seems yet again to have dog walked Donald Trump. And to connect the dots real quick before we talk about Gaza, and I know you got to go in 2, 3 minutes. Folks, Obama was very successful in the US Iran deal. It was a diplomatic coup, and it lowered the temperature, brought Iran to the table, and kept them further away from achieving a nuclear weapon or even trying to get a nuclear weapon. It was Donald Trump being influenced by Benjamin Netanyahu in his first administration who tore it up. But speaking about Gaza, because I want to go back to Biden and the Democratic establishment and allowing Netanyahu to commit a genocide in Gaza, I connect the dots that Netanyahu has felt emboldened in the past year and a half. He said, all right, I can cross every single red line of Biden. I can go do terror attacks in Lebanon. That was not my words. That was Leon Panetta's words. I can go back and forth with the Houthis. Who's going to stop me now? Am I wrong with my assessment?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think what happened under Biden is that something that Netanyahu has tried to get and secure over and over again suddenly was delivered, which is complete lifting of all constraints on Israel, in which the Israeli could use American weaponry in manners that that the American military is not allowed to use. Let me give you a couple of examples to just see how far we moved in terms of just giving them complete impunity. In 2004, the Israelis assassinated the founder of Hamas, Sheikh Yassin. They killed
Yep.
9 or 11 of his family members in that strike. The George W. Bush administration condemned the act because of a large number of collateral damage, meaning civilians that were killed in that strike. In 2006, the Israelis tried to kill Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, several times, but the US would not provide the weapons or the rules of engagement that would enable the Israelis to do so because of concerns for collateral damage. In 2024, the Israelis struck Nasrallah, but this time with 82,000-pound bombs, taking down the entire neighborhood, killing more than 300 civilians to get to one person. And the Biden administration issued a written congratulatory note to the Israelis. That's how far we've moved in terms of just letting the Israelis do whatever they want. Under those circumstances, it should not be surprising that Netanyahu saw an opportunity to go all out and also take on the Iranians and do this type of an attack, knowing very well that the US's willingness to push back had been severely damaged. And every time this happens, the next administration, if it's coming from a different party, doesn't matter. The new baseline is what the previous one did. And you don't want to look as if you're more critical of the Israelis, tougher on the Israelis than the previous one. You want to look as if you're more supportive of them than the previous one. So it just constantly keeps on moving things forward. And ultimately, it leads to a scenario in which the Israelis have now engaged in what is clearly just a war on international law, trying to erase all kinds of norms around the use of force and IHL, international humanitarian law.
I want to let you go in 1 minute. So it's the final question because you're going to be on Al Jazeera. Twitter's been busy. I predict this time it'll be different. This time, I think there's a fissure within the Republican Party. I think there's young people who have been radicalized in real time by seeing a genocide. I don't think there's an appetite for war. And what I posted a couple hours ago, and I think is going to be proven true, that the establishment is far away from the majority. The pro-war establishment is misreading the moment. And so in the next week, Trita, if there are people listening right now who can be influential, what is the advice to those people who could lower the temperature and take us away from more catastrophe?
I think it's absolutely critical that people put all kinds of pressure on their lawmakers as well as on the administration to make sure that they end this as quickly as possible, even if there is an Iranian retaliation. If that is then responded by the US again, then we're just going to have an escalatory cycle, and this is going to lead to a longer term, perhaps even an endless war. Trump has shown his ability to actually end wars. I mean, remember, he went into Yemen and thankfully, he pulled out after 45 days. He should never have gone in the first place. But most other presidents, once they would have started that, would have gone on for years and years and then kicked the can down the road and let it be determined by the next president. So he has shown his ability to do so. The pressure for him to do that again, I think, needs to be as strong as possible. Otherwise, this can become a much, much worse disaster than any of the wars we've seen in the Middle East so far.
Trita, thanks so much for joining me. You've been nonstop go, 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 and now you got to go to Al Jazeera. This is Trita Parsi. Follow him on Twitter, follow him on social media. He's at the Quincy Institute. He's written great books, and also subscribe to his Substack. Trita, take care, man.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you for all you do.
I'm gonna take care. I'm gonna invite Allison Gill of Muller. She wrote. She wants to join me right quick. So let me see if I could pull this off, guys. Hopefully you all can hear me. Muller. She wrote. Okay, there you go. Add Allison Gill. Thanks all for joining. I'm on vacation. And I haven't eaten dinner yet, and dinner's downstairs. So if you hear screaming, there's a whole bunch of kids. My kids are with their cousins. But United States joining a war with Israel against another Middle Eastern country, I think necessitates you going hungry for a bit and forfeiting some comfort to inform the population, to inform the public. Folks, I'm old enough to remember I was 21 years old at UC Berkeley when 9/11 happened, and George W. Bush, the incompetent leadership of George W. Bush, cheerled this war with the active war drum given to you by corporate media, by think tanks, by lobbyists. And many of us, millions of us around the world protested and said this war is going to be a disaster. Sadly, history proved us right. But after thousands of people were killed, after ISIS was birthed, after there was terrorism, after generations were traumatized. And here we are, Allison, in 2025, where Donald Trump, who promised to be the America First president, non-interventionist president, the peace president, the president who will not start wars but end wars, the president who would make the rest of the world bend in respect to America, now he finally has his war. This is his war, Donald Trump and MAGA's war with Iran. The U.S. now is at war with Iran, has joined Israel in committing this unilateral strike, and the world is at edge. Allison, I give to you your thoughts. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me, Waj. I am like having 1991 flashbacks right now.
Oh, yeah, I'm old enough to remember that as well.
I think Christiane Amanpour put it best when she explained that for decades, Israel has been trying to get the United States to deliver a GBU 57AB MOB, I think is what it's called, a bunker buster, a 30,000-pound bunker buster, because we have the B-2 bombers that can deliver those bombs, and Israel doesn't. And for decades, presidents have been like, hell no, no, no. you know, we do a lot for Israel.
We'll greenlight everything else, but that,
Yeah, like even Biden's like, I'm not going to give Israel any bombs beyond 2,000 pounds. This is a 30,000-pound bomb. And Israel can't deliver it, so they need the United States. And for decades, the United States has been like, no, hell no, until we get Donald Trump in his second term, when he is no longer surrounded by people like General Milley or Esper, or people who probably said no to him the first time.
Mattis.
Certainly not John Bolton. But regardless,
John Bolton has had probably as big of a war boner for Iran than any other person, perhaps excluding Netanyahu. But continue.
Yeah, him and Lindsey Graham, and believe it or not, John McCain, former senator from Arizona. I think they sang the song "Bomb, Bomb, Bomb."
Yeah.
But that is how Christiana Amanpour explained it. I think she explained it very well and very succinctly. But I noticed when I watched clips of Trump's remarks, I actually got up to go get some tea to get my throat ready for this because I screamed so much at the No Kings rally. I was yelling so much. And by the time I got back with my tea, the remarks were over. And I was expecting, like you remember he was like, they died like dogs. They went in through they why not knock on the front door? Like, I was expecting just something.
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi died like a dog. Like a dog.
Yeah, and I loved that. I think it was Kimmel or Fallon who put the side by side of Obama's announcement of Bin Laden and his. But I thought it was I think the thing that stood out to me the most is he said, "God bless Israel" before he said, "God bless the United States of America."
I clocked, and well, first he said, "God bless Middle East." Then he said, "God bless Israel," and you're like, "Do you realize that Israel in the Middle East?" The answer is probably no. And then he faltered in saying what every Republican, Democrat president throughout history can say at the tip of their tongue: "God bless United States," and also "We love God," which all proved to me and showed me that this is a man who's never prayed to God in his life.
Right. No, exactly. But I immediately thought of, Joe Biden signed off every speech with "God protect our troops."
Yeah.
And yeah, atheist here, agnostic at best. But that is who my first thoughts went to, was the 40,000 troops we have stationed right nearby. They've already been attacked by Houthis in Iran. And, there was a lot of traumatic brain injury that Donald Trump said, "Oh, it's just headaches, buck up," from Captain Bone Spurs. I shouldn't say captain.
No, don't.
Something much lower.
Peon, private bone spurs.
But I thought of that, and then I started to think about our response, or the response that Iran might have, and if we're prepared to handle it. And
Right.
all of the infrastructure that's been ripped away by this administration. He's gutted the National Security Council. He's gutted CISA, so our cybersecurity protections are gone. The Joint Terrorism Task Force has been disbanded and asked to go round up people for mass deportation. DHS as a whole is just solely focused on immigration, and 70% of which have never committed a crime. So DHS is useless, and this is what they're supposed to be doing, right? We have a third of the FBI right now. A third of the work of the FBI is for immigration. We've got no allies because they're all laughing at us. We've completely abandoned NATO. We don't have any probably intelligence partners outside of Israel, and probably not even Israel. They're probably just buttering up Trump to get him to, lend our bombs and our B-2s. But Donald Trump has personally screwed Israel twice that we know about on intel leaks. He did it at the Oval Office with Lavrov. He's done it again recently with some photo that he showed. And then we've got a drunk in charge of the military. Our military is weakened. We've just kicked out a bunch of extremely amazing troops that because they're transgender, that were experts in security and intelligence. We've fired the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. We've removed the head of the Navy. We've got a very weakened military right now.
And we're isolated, like you mentioned, and I really appreciate this breakdown. You had this on the post, which I really liked, and I shared it. I'm glad you're breaking this down. because it also shows you why white supremacy is ultimately very stupid and self-destructive, because we are going after threats who aren't threats, such as National Guard and the military against literally U.S. residents and citizens. But now we're not prepared against actual threats that can happen. And yes, Iran is not a nuclear weapon like Israel and the United States, but there's also asymmetrical warfare. And the person who's heading domestic countering, the person who's now countering violent extremism, folks at home, is 21-year-old Thomas Fugate, who was a
Yes.
former grocer
Uh,
and guard.
Waj, he just turned 22. Come on. Come on, come on.
General Thomas Fugate. Think about with our weakened military, because and I'm so glad you mentioned Kegseth. Military.com did a really good. Military.com has been doing some fantastic reporting where they have the eyes and ears of our military and veterans, and they're saying that our armed forces no longer respect Pete Hegseth. He can't even get folks. This was an article that Allison and I would remember, but most people won't. But it's because we're masochists. That even within MAGA, Pete Hegseth is having trouble getting senior advisors because no one wants to work with him. And now the military is joining the National Guard, not, actually against threats against Americans, but helping ICE round up innocent folks. And like you mentioned, we've pissed off NATO, we've pissed off EU, and Tulsi Gabbard wasn't in that press that press briefing, right? Did you notice it was Hegseth, Rubio, and JD Waltz, not JD Waltz, JD Vance. And speaking about intelligence, man, why I think this is very important, he threw Tulsi Gabbard under the bus. Tulsi
Yes.
Gabbard, as the director of national intelligence, said 90 days ago, Iran is not close to having a nuclear weapon. And earlier this week, twice, tell him what Donald Trump did when he was confronted with that fact.
Oh, he said, I don't care what she said, or something to that effect. I don't care what she says.
Okay,
That
so if he's not trusting, so follow up then. What I would ask, if I was there, well, if you don't trust U.S. intelligence, whose intelligence are you following?
right. Right. And if you don't trust the DNI that you appointed, I don't understand. DNI, Department of Homeland Security, DNI was created post 9/11 to deal with foreign terrorist threats. And that, I mean, we can talk like kind of more umbrella and on other issues about what DHS is doing right now. I don't think it needs to exist as an agency. At least ICE doesn't.
I
Because we
doesn't.
have,
There's no for it.
if we have CISA, move that out and do our cyber intelligence. But our number one terror threat in the United States is domestic violent extremists from white supremacists. That's number one. And it's not even close. And it has been for like a decade. But DHS, if they aren't focused on that, and the DNI isn't focused on that, and the DNI disagrees with you, exactly what you say, Waj, who are you listening to? It's got to just be Bibi.
And if you heard the speech and I heard the speech and I heard it closely, it was a short speech, and I just had Trita Parsi on and I asked him this. I said, "Listen, this is my take on it." He agreed with me. Expert on Iran. I said that speech was as if Netanyahu wrote it, and Netanyahu could have delivered it.
Yeah, and I heard reports too that when Netanyahu gave a little bit of a press conference, it looked like he was like jumping with joy, about to jump out of his skin about how happy he is because, like I said, when I was talking about what Christiane Amanpour said, who is by far like way bigger expert on this stuff than me, uh, for decades Israel has wanted us to do this, and we noticed.
1982. Netanyahu's been at it since 1982.
And you and I talked a little bit about in April when they sent the B2s to Diego Garcia. We're like, uh-oh, what's that? And then just last night they sent out 4 more. That's 60% of that fleet, by the way. That's like big. And then they sent the Carl Vinson over to the Gulf about a week ago, and then they scrambled those tankers about 4 or 5 days ago. The air, the planes that can refuel planes in the Air Force refueling planes. Like, if this is your one and done, mission accomplished situation, why are you sending all that firepower there? It's obvious that it's anticipatory of a retaliation, even if Iran is weakened. You've got the Houthis and you've got all the Iranian proxies that, yes, have also been weakened, but are still capable of attacking our troops.
And let's name them: Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, You have a Shia population in Iraq, Al Qaeda that doesn't like Shias but doesn't care. If they could see this as an opportunity to rally and mobilize troops against U.S. and Israel, so be it. Right? Extremist elements of Hamas, right? And then also violent extremist groups that could pop up. We don't know. ISIS popped up as a result of the U.S. war in Iraq, right? And so that's what I'm really worried about is asymmetrical warfare that will be the long tail of this war that they don't seem to have really thought of. And we have 22-year-old Thomas Fugate now ahead of counterterrorism. But continue, Allison. I didn't mean to, but I'm so glad you brought up that point.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I just feel like this is an obvious provocation for more. Because, if they don't attack our U.S. troops, which they have said they will now in retaliation, they're going to go after the Strait of Hormuz. And so now we're worried about gas prices and commerce. That's a major shipping lane, right? And so they're going to attack that. At least that would be, that seems to be what everybody is presuming is going to happen. Uh, the, okay, two scenarios here. Either Trump knows this and he's ready and he wants to get into this war and spend the money and then make the weapons here again and make more money. Or he doesn't think us more than two steps ahead and is completely incompetent and is just
Latter.
doing what Bibi Netanyahu says. So, I mean, for any, I I hope this is a one and done thing, but who believes that can possibly be the reality? Like that the Houthis are going to go, yeah, you're right. We'll, we'll lay off of this one this time.
No, look, it's easy to start wars in the Middle East, very hard to end them. If you don't believe me, I give you the past 25 years. And why would Iran, and not just Iran, but Trina made a good point. Any country in that region, why would you trust Trump anymore, right? You'd be like, you know what I'm going to get? I need a nuclear weapon because then they won't F with me, right? So every Turkey, Iraq, Iran, like all these countries right now, if I'm them, I'm on edge because first of all, spillover. Second of all, violent extremist groups, like you mentioned. But if I'm Iranian, I'm like, this is war. Israel unilaterally struck, and now United States joined by, like you said, giving their B-52 bunker bombers and destroying these three facilities, and also using U.S. submarines. That is war. U.S. is officially at war with Iran, joining Israel. And so the winners of this, the only winners that I see, Allison, and I want your thoughts on this, and I asked Trita this also, is I see Netanyahu, not Israel, but Netanyahu as a winner. This helps Netanyahu, folks, helps him
Oh,
stay
yeah.
in power. The military-industrial complex and violent extremist groups. Who else wins?
Well, there's some stuff that we probably don't know about. There's backdoor deals that have gone on between Iran and Trump himself. He's got an Azerbaijan property there and helped launder money to the um, Iranian Defense Forces. I can't remember the name of the group. But so he's got stuff going on with Iran as well, and it's going to be interesting to see where those deals shake out. Because nothing that can make money is left off the table. I mean, we see what's going on with Bukele, right, in El Salvador, where he's like, yes, I will drop the charges against the MS-13 gang members that murdered and raped Americans and send them your way if you take this $6 million and these 230 people that we want to send you. And no, we won't release the agreement, even though by law we're supposed to put it up on our State Department website, but it probably doesn't even exist. And we don't want anybody to see it because that's probably in there. So,
That folks, Allison brought the receipts. Are your taxpayer dollars? 6 million of them went to this crypto dictator Bukele to house not just legal immigrants, but also, as Donald Trump said, people forgot he's open to sending citizens, and those people have been sent. People like Abrego Garcia, without due process, to essentially die in a foreign gulag. Continue.
And not only that, I'm sorry to stay on this Bukele thing, but this just blows my mind. They laundered money from USAID to pay. Bukele laundered USAID money to pay MS-13 to get votes to help him win the election and to stop murdering for a while so he can prove that he was tough on crime. And the people who know about that deal that he paid MS-13 with our tax dollars, those are the people he wants extradited back to El Salvador so he could silence them, those MS-13 gang members. But what also blows my mind is for the last decade, the person who's been investigating Project Vulcan, this whole Bukele money laundering thing, Durham, the guy that Trump put in charge of investigating the oranges of the Mueller probe. Anyway, It's just, long
But
sordid
it's all
history. But
corrupt. It's corrupt. It's
these are the kind
illegal.
of
It's a trick.
transactional deals, right? And so
Yeah.
we don't even know what's going on with Trump and Iran. Or Iran. I know there's there's something there, and who the hell knows can even dive into that. But this is just absolute abject failure. Well, first of all, on our part for electing the guy, but
Absolutely.
to 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 kowtow to Bibi Netanyahu like this after decades and decades of presidents said no. Even the most evil presidents that we've had in the past who were super warmongers and love to, fund the military industrial complex were even like, no, we're not going to drop 10 $3.5 million bunker busters on these nuclear sites. And here's why. Because they didn't do anything really. First of all, one of the sites is they're already saying that there wasn't that much damage to. Another thing, Iran got the enriched uranium out of there months ago, and all of their people, and all of their assets. And these bunker busters don't so much destroy these like centrifuge falls and things like that. They just bury them. So
Yeah.
this can all be back up and running. They still have the knowledge, they still have the equipment, they still have the enriched uranium. Now you think they don't have more incentive to get to a nuclear bomb faster?
It's escalation and acceleration. I think it's very important because, folks, they're going to lie to you and corporate media is going to fail you and they're going to distract. It's very important to know Iran does not have nuclear weapons. Let me repeat this. Iran does not have nuclear weapons. If you don't take my word for it, fine. Take Tulsi Gabbard's word for it. The Director of National Intelligence. Iran was not close to nuclear weapons. And the reason why Iran was not close to nuclear weapons is because diplomacy worked. President Obama had a diplomatic coup. When it happened, I gave him his flowers. And I said people will respect this in due time, and they did. The U.S.-Iran nuclear deal brought Iran to the table. Everyone's like, how can you talk to Iran? How can you talk to him? Oh, it's a repressive regime. Folks, this is the same Donald Trump that exchanged love letters with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, right? And right now is praising MBS, and right now literally got dog-walked by war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu as a result.
And
But the
invited the
U.S.
Taliban to Camp David.
Yeah, and who have retaken, by the way, the Taliban. Yeah, they're in charge again of Afghanistan. So good luck to all those people who thought the war on terror was a success, total failure. But as a result of that diplomacy, even the war hawks like Mattis, who was the Secretary of Defense in Donald Trump's first administration, said, "You know what? I was wrong. This is right." And it was Donald Trump who blew up the successful U.S.-Iran deal, again being what influenced and played by Netanyahu, which then escalated. But even then, there was, like Allison said, there were some people, like Kelly and Mattis and Esper, who were like kept him a little bit in check. But now, why would Iran not aggressively pursue nuclear weapons? Why wouldn't anyone? Folks, put yourself in Iran's situation. Think for a second. Just do role play. Suppose you're Iran. We did everything right. This mother effer blew it up. We tried to do the right stuff, even though it's, like all these regimes, they're dangerous and volatile and extreme. But nonetheless, okay, we tried to be responsible. It still didn't matter. Israel, which is committing a genocide in Gaza, Israel that has been friggin' a warmonger, Israel that, not my words, Panetta's word, committed terrorism against Hezbollah in Lebanon, right? That Israel did a unilateral strike right before you, Donald Trump, were supposed to meet us. Donald Trump, you told the world that you were looking forward to meeting us over the weekend, and Israel then blew it up. Folks, let's connect the dots with the timeline. Donald Trump publicly rebuked Israel. Israel said, "Don't meet Iran. Don't meet Iran. They're a terror regime. They have to be replaced." Donald Trump said, "No, I'm going to meet them." Over the weekend, he was supposed to meet them. What does Israel do a week ago? Unilateral strike. Donald Trump completely unaware. How do I know he was unaware? Because Marco Rubio first said unilateral strike. He said, the Secretary of State, that it was unilateral. He didn't say it was U.S. and Israel. Then Donald Trump didn't want to look weak. So then he becomes, unconditional surrender. I knew, of course. How could they have not told me? I'm Donald Trump. Right? And then he was called a taco, Allison. And then yesterday he said, come back in 2 weeks. And I do think Netanyahu, understanding how weak and fickle Trump is and how he hates being seen as weak, they just played him like a fiddle for the past week. And I think this got to Trump that he was being seen as weak, and voila, now he literally did Netanyahu's bidding. But Iran was not close to nuclear weapons. Iran was unilaterally struck by Israel. You can hate the Iranian government, but you also have to, remember there are millions of Iranians there, folks. There are people. So this was a unilateral strike, and U.S. could have intervened and said, Step back, Israel. Step the F back. We're a superpower. We give you diplomatic support, weapons, missiles. And you just blew up my potential diplomatic meeting I had with Iran. Instead, they got played, and then you got the war hawks like Lindsey Graham and Mike Huckabee and Ted Cruz, who apparently thinks it's his job as a U.S. senator to protect the nation of Israel, even though he can't define it and can't place the verse in Genesis and doesn't know the population of Iran. And now we have this situation. So I had to. You're going to get gaslit a lot in the next couple of days, folks. But just remember that it's very, very important for you to remember this was all unnecessary. And this was Netanyahu playing on Trump's weakness and fickleness. And Trump decided, I'm not going to be Taco. So let me drag the world into war. And now here we are where we are, Allison.
Yeah. And we don't have like Miles Taylor or Chris Krebs in the administration anymore. Miles Taylor, who tells a story in his book Blowback about the fact that they had to kind of talk Donald Trump out of withdrawing troops from Afghanistan or Syria, one of the two. I can't remember which one, but they had a big giant what the briefing normally looks like, tons of pages, different inputs from different agencies and stuff. And they said, no, we have to make a one-page thing, and we have to do it in Trump's voice, his language, something that will convince him not to withdraw the troops from Syria or whatever. And so they changed it from like troop withdrawal briefing, presidential daily brief to at the top it just said, oh, what's going on? Okay.
Charger.
At the top it just said something like, if we pull out, we'll look like losers. We want how to be a winner. And then and it was just like a one-page thing about how not to do it. And then we would look like winners. And he agreed to that. And so that's what saved us from that. We don't have those people in the White House anymore. Do you think that he's, they're all saying no regime change, no regime change. But they also were going to say, no, we're not going to go into a war. We're not going to get into a war. Do you think that they're angling for a regime change? Well, I know Bibi Netanyahu is, and it's not real hard to convince Donald Trump to go along with what you want if you know how to do it.
Easy to start wars, hard to end them. That's what they want. That's what Christian nationalists want. That's what the military-industrial complex wants. That's what a lot of pro-Israel liberal wants right now. But I give you the last 25 years. Allison, unfortunately, my phone is not charging. I have 3% left.
Oh, all right.
No, but thank you for joining me. It's 1,500 people. I'll give you the final word. What do you want Democrats to say in this moment? What do you want Democratic leaders to say? Because maybe, folks, last thing I'll say before, because it's only because my phone isn't working. I'm so sorry. And I see 1,500 of you joining. I want to talk to Allison for 10 more minutes. This is illegal also. He did not have congressional approval for this strike. So it's illegal, unconstitutional. You should be impeached for this. But what do you want Democratic leaders to say in this particular moment?
That's it. This is illegal. I want to see lawsuits. I want to see people standing up and saying in a strong voice that this is illegal and it's unconstitutional and you circumvented Congress and you violated the Constitution with their whole voice and their whole bodies. And I also want them to continue to repeat the fact that Iran does not have nuclear weapons.
Allison Gill, thank you so much for joining me last second. As always, it's Mother, She Wrote. Please subscribe. Also listen to the Daily Beans podcast, where you get your daily politics with snark and swear words. It's Allison Gill. This has been The Left Hook. Folks, I promise it'll be my last live stream. I'm in Florida right now, and I was supposed to be on vacation. I just got in from the airport, and voila, the world is at war. Thanks to all for joining. Please subscribe. If you can give a couple of bucks, please do. If you can't, I have no paywalls, but spread the good word. I just talked to Allison beforehand. I was talking to Trita Parsi. I know there's 1,500 people who joined. I really recommend listening to Trita and Allison. Great back-to-back. This conversation was about 50 minutes long. I'm going to have the full conversation up in an hour with transcripts. And I think it's very edifying and stuff that unfortunately you won't hear a lot in corporate media, but it connects all the dots. And folks, we're on the side of peace. We're on the side of sanity. Easy to start wars, hard to end them. The innocent always die. The young always die. And we've had enough wars in the Middle East in my lifetime and Allison's lifetime. Thank you all. Take care of yourselves. Be kind. Thank you, Allison. Rest up. Get your voice back. Later.